This is the Brick and Banter Podcast. I'm Ethan Burke with Irongate Realtors. Today I have...
Todd Hackett. I'm the training manager for the Irongate company.
Very cool. Do you train at all the offices or just this one?
Oh, I train at all the offices. So Rhonda hired me about a year and a half ago to set up a new training program for the organization. I think initially my focus was on new agents. Really what we wanted to do is make sure we could provide training for the entire organization, from new agents to intermediate agents to even advanced agents. So we're starting to do a lot more of that right now, and I think it's going quite well. We got a good compliment from some of our up-and-coming agents that said, hey, Irongate is one of the places where they actually look at training for all levels. We're going to continue to do more of that with the help of just the great depth that we have in this organization. So, I mean, I facilitate a lot of the training. I teach some of the classes, but we have some powerhouse agents here at Irongate we rely on to do a lot of the training themselves, to include our managers and some of our top producers and things like that.
That's cool.
Yeah.
You say you facilitate. You mean you actually created the training, or do you find it somewhere?
Yeah, so I didn't create it by myself. So one of the things that I did when I got here, I spent quite a bit of time getting out into the branches and talking to the managers, and got some great input from them, and also got a lot of great input from agents themselves who told me what type of training they wanted.
What kind of trainings they come up with?
Well, they come up with a lot of stuff. So I got a lot of agents that said, hey, I don't learn well from sitting behind a computer and clicking buttons and listening to videos.
Yeah.
Even though we have some of that. And for some agents that works well. A lot of our agents wanted to see more hands-on applications of training.
Yeah.
And so we created 4 hands-on training classes. We have a hands-on training program for open houses. So, and that's actually a one-on-one training that I do. So when I have brand new agents that come in and they want to do their first open house, if they give me enough time, I will schedule that with them. I will go to the open house with them. I'll help them make sure their signs are going in the right direction. Believe it or not, you know, I've done circles around houses because, you know, new agents didn't really know how to set those up, to getting there and actually doing some role plays with them, and even observing them when prospects would come into the home, and I'd, you know, sit there and listen to them, hear what they had to say, and then we'd talk about it after, you know, and see how that went. So that's a good one. We have a hands-on construction class. There's a lot of agents that didn't realize you could make a lot of money in new construction, but you have to understand the phases of construction and what to do in order to add any benefit and value to your client. Yeah. We have a hands-on listing class, listing appointment class. I remember my first listing appointment. I didn't know what I was doing. You know, I was a brand new agent. I was in a brokerage that didn't have a training program. It was
fun. So
it was so bad that I eventually became the training manager for that brokerage as well. So it was just me learning as I went along. But yeah, you know, what do you do when you get to your listing appointment, from knocking on the door to walking through the house and giving recommendations and showing your competence, because, you know, you're being interviewed when you're going through there. So we try to, you know, add those types. Oh, we have a hands-on inspection class where we have one of our preferred providers come out and show agents how they do inspections and what's important.
That's cool. That'd be a good one.
It really does, because, you know, you get that 30-page report. Even when it's a new home, you're going to have problems, yeah. Right? And it can really mess up a deal. You can really spook the herd with those reports. And as an agent, if you don't know how to translate that to your clients, then you're going to be in a world of hurt, right?
Yeah.
So
that's something I always try to prepare them for. Like, we're going to get a giant list. Most of it is just them kind of proving that they've looked at every single inch of the house and pointing out every little tiny crack and detail. Some of it's going to be really important, and that's what we need to look at. The rest of it is just there's no such thing as a perfect house.
No,
kind of
no,
thing.
there really isn't. And sometimes you find even more stuff with new construction than you do with pre-existing
Yeah.
homes. So
Especially depending on the builder.
exactly, exactly. Yeah, not all builders are created equally. So we try to add a lot of those hands-on classes, and then finding the right mix of classroom training. Because some agents like to sit in classrooms and learn that way. Some agents would rather sit at home and be on Zoom. So we try to provide a good mixture of those and really pack our calendars. Like, I think last year had over 70 training events. And this year my goal is to get that up to the high 80s.
Nice.
And it's not just to add quantity, they have to be quality as well.
Yeah.
But agents are busy. So, like, for example, in February, I think we have 12 or 13 training events this month alone. And that gives them an opportunity to pick and choose, what they can listen to and what they can attend.
Yeah. I know there were a couple that I was like, oh, I want to go to that one. And then that happened to be the only day of the week that somebody popped up and said, oh, I want to see a house.
Exactly.
Okay, I guess I'm doing that.
That's what happens in real estate, right? I mean, your clients come first, so
Yeah.
every once in a while, that's going to happen. So you just got to keep getting the classes out there, and also you got to keep improving the classes as well.
Yeah.
I've had some classes that I've said, this one's not going to work, and I've had other classes that surprised me that were very popular, and I'm always trying to develop something new to keep it fresh as well.
Yeah. So what are some of the classes you had to cut? That either people weren't going to or they just weren't relevant anymore?
Well, they just weren't. For example, we had a class on some financial planning stuff, and the intent was good. The execution wasn't as good as it could be. I talked to the folks who were putting this together, and now it's going to be a great class, and I'm really looking forward to putting that one back out there.
Nice.
As well. So
Is it just outdated information or just dry?
It was just it needed to be more geared. The information was great. We just need to gear it more towards our agents, towards real estate. And,
Gotcha.
So there's been a couple examples there where we've had to just kind of fix or eliminate or those types of things. But and I'm always looking for ideas from other agents on what they want to learn. And I get some really honest feedback, which is great. Some solicited, some unsolicited.
Of course.
Which is okay, because
Yeah.
you have to, it's not a self-licking ice cream cone. You have to provide something that people want to come to.
Yeah. What's been the most popular class?
I would say the hands-on classes are the most popular. Any one of those classes typically get 20 to 25, sometimes 30 people at those.
Nice.
We have some special events that we've put on as well, things that Rhonda really wanted to do for the brokerage. One of them was we had a series on, at the Neon, we had a documentary series on redlining. And we had folks who produced the documentary and
That's
also
cool.
people that were part of the documentary were part of a panel that I moderated. And that went really well. We had a lot of people show up for that. We just had one yesterday that Rhonda really wanted to get on the books, and it was with the historic homes. And we had a local historian go down to our Irongate University classroom, and we had about 28 agents there. Probably had more. Like you said, some people had other things they had to do. Things came up. I'm sure weather was a factor for some of our agents as well. But we had this great presentation on the Oregon district and understanding our local community. And to be a good realtor, you really have to understand the community that you're serving. Those types of things help build trust with your clients and stuff like that. So it was a really good presentation. We plan to do more. We're going to probably do a walking tour of some of our historic areas as well when the weather's better.
That'd be cool.
And just trying to find different things out there that agents want to attend.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I know there's always that box on the contract that says, is this a historic home?
Right.
And I don't really know how that really affects anything other than you probably don't want to tear it down and build a new one over.
Yeah, we talked a lot about that yesterday. And through that conversation, it's like the old saying, the more you learn, the less you know, right?
Yeah.
And, of course, the disclosures talk about that. And
Yeah.
if seller has to disclose that it is a historic home in a historic environment. But as a realtor, what are your obligations
Yeah.
for disclosure? For me is I'm going to make sure that they disclose what they're supposed to,
Yeah.
and also provide as much information as I can that I can find through planning committees, through neighborhood associations. There's so many different places that you might have to go to find this information.
Yeah.
But you have to do the best you can and document as much as you can to disclose as much as you can.
Yeah. Now, with a historic home, does that change anything that has to be done for like repairs or anything? Is there like a limit to it?
Oh yeah, there were a lot of things I learned yesterday, so I was kind of learning too, and that's the great thing about being the training manager. I go to all the training, and I'm always learning something new. The person who taught the class lives in a historic home,
Oh, nice.
and I think she said she had like 62 windows in her house,
Dang.
which was apparently a sign of wealth back then. The more windows you had, the more you got taxed on your
that's right.
home, which was and that's why you see a lot of old buildings where the windows were covered up because they didn't want to pay as much in taxes. But she's like, I don't know what I'm going to do, and I have to replace these windows because they're going to have to meet certain parameters. You just can't go down a, local window place and say, hey, put some windows in. It has to meet certain requirements.
Yeah.
A lot of these homes were big, huge single-family homes, and then over the years they turned them into boarding houses and different things like that.
Yeah.
So apparently it's okay you can do whatever you want inside the home.
Just the outside.
It's just the outside of the home. You have to really be careful about. Even she gave examples of a lot of these old wooden homes, right? You just can't put vinyl siding over them. You're gonna have to use paint. You're gonna have to do those types of things. So it just makes it a little bit more unique, for sure.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
So what's the next training coming up?
Last month we focused a lot on listings, and what we did was we had 3 great classes in a row. We had our Staging for Success class taught by our own Ellen Henderson. She teaches as a 2-hour CE class. That kind of set the stage for the next day. Brett Williford and I, he's a manager here at Beaver Creek, we taught a class together on the listing appointment side and walking through the home and all that stuff. And then we ended the week with Rhonda. She does a great listing presentation. So we did that by Zoom and had about 32 people on for that. So we focused completely on listings. So I'm learning to try to group training together where it makes sense, right?
Yeah.
And I think it's going to be more impactful.
That makes sense. That way you can draw stuff from one training, bring it to the next. It's not just all over.
Exactly.
Like that.
So I'm trying to find more ways to do that. February, the classes that we have, I wasn't able to do that as much, but we have a great class coming at the end of the month. It's going to be a follow-on to the Forge training that we did in November, and the theme of this one is going to be, changing markets. How do you structure your business in a changing market? First of all, what is a changing market, and those types of things. So we're going to talk more about that. So that's going to be good coming up. And of course, we have some standard classes coming up. I think we have a dot loop class and some of our more typical classes that our agents need to attend. Yeah.
So I had a question about the listing. You brought that up. I ran into this in one house, and I didn't end up getting it. So I'm curious what kind of tactics I could use. So I went in there with realistic numbers.
Right.
And they didn't like that.
Yeah.
They thought the house was worth at least $100,000 more than it was.
Yeah.
Even though literally from their porch you could look out and see a house that was bigger and nicer and cheaper.
Wow.
They didn't want to hear any of it. So I assumed they had somebody come in, blow smoke up their skirt, and just lie to them and get the contract. What's a good tactic for a situation like that? Because I don't want to lie to people.
No. I think you have to be honest. The first thing I do is I never give anyone a number. Like, you can do a comparative market analysis and you come up with this with this final number, and they think it was carved in stone. I try to give people a range, sometimes a $10,000-$20,000 range, depending on, obviously, if it's a $200,000 house, your range is going to be smaller.
Yeah.
But I don't argue with my clients or my potential clients. I just show them facts. So when I go to a listing appointment, I will not only do a comparative market analysis that I'm going to show them, take 3 properties and kind of do it that way, but I will make a copy of I'll go to MLS, and every home that is sold in that neighborhood in the past 6 months, sometimes 9 months, depending how fast they sell, and I'll just bring that with me, because it's amazing what neighbors think. So they talk around the water cooler, if you will, and they'll say something like, well, Johnny sold his house, for $600,000, and it's like, yeah, but Johnny's house had a pool, it had, upgraded finishes, it had all these things. So I never argue with them. You can blame the market. You can talk about the market. It's right there. Another thing I'll say too is say, look, yeah, I can list your house for that amount, but here's what's going to happen. The only one that's really going to benefit is me and your neighbors. I'm going to benefit because I'm going to have my sign in the yard. Yeah. And people are going to call that sign and ask me about the house. And when I tell them how much it costs, they're going to tell me it's too expensive. But I've got a whole other inventory of homes I can show them. Your neighbors are going to love you because they're going to, when they're listing their homes, they're going to list it at a lower price. And it's going to seem like a bargain in comparison, right?
Yeah.
So you're not really helping yourself. Rhonda has a great chart in her listing presentation, too, that shows the correlation between overpricing your house up front and what that curve looks like.
Yeah.
You lose a lot of time in the first 30 days if it's overpriced. And that's when the interest is really there.
Very true.
Yeah. So every client's going to be different. I mean, if I had a seller that wanted to list it for $100,000 more than it was worth, me personally, I'd probably walk away from that because I don't think it's realistic. If you're off $20,000, even $30,000, you can play with that.
Yeah.
You can work that. Sometimes I'll have an agreement, say, okay, we'll start out at this price, but within 2 weeks, if we're not getting the amount of showings I think we should be going, will you agree to lower your price to X amount? And sometimes you can get them to do that.
Yeah. So I notice if it sits there too long, then they start getting the crazy lowball offers.
Right.
Give you $50K less than listing.
Exactly. Exactly.
It's definitely an experience talking to the sellers and talking to the buyers, and people seem to have very different ideas when they're one or the other. I've noticed that. If they're looking to buy, they think everything's overpriced and everything should sell for like way less than it's listed for. I had one person, I was showing them a house. It was listed around like $300. They're like, I wouldn't pay more than $280 for this place.
Right.
But if you were listing their house, they'd want $30,000 more than it was worth.
Yeah.
It's just bizarre.
Yeah. So one thing I've learned over the years is real estate is at least 60% emotion, maybe 40% logic, right? So
that's very accurate.
Anybody who's getting ready to sell their home, I've been shocked. So I always ask people when I sit down to talk about pricing, I say, hey, what did you have in mind? I try to get an idea of what they think. And I think maybe only twice that did they have a number lower than mine, which is great, So if their number is lower than yours, you can be a hero and say, well, you know what, I think you can get $50,000 more for your house, right? That's great, but that's rare to have that conversation. Yeah. It's going to be the other way. They're going to think that new roof they put on their house is going to be a dollar-to-dollar increase in terms of, heck, I've spent $18,000 on that roof. I'm saying, great, that's more subjective value in the sense that if there's 2 homes close together, they may decide to buy yours because it has a new roof. But the expectation is that the roof's going to work. Yeah. I don't care how old it is. And, I'm getting ready to list a home now, and the roof hadn't been changed in 30 years. And he asked me, should I change my roof? And I was like, yes, because that's the first thing that's going to happen. Yeah. And then he said, well, how much more can I get for my house? I said, the numbers aren't going to change based on that. But everybody thinks they're, and right on the opposite side of that too, buyers, they'll come up with a number and say, I wouldn't pay more than this. And in my question to them, and I don't say in a rude way, but I ask them, I said, what are you basing that on?
They never based it on anything.
I'm curious, and see if they can articulate to you what that is. And a lot of times they'll be talking about, well, my friend who lives in 5 neighborhoods over. Well, that's a very different market
Yeah.
than the one you're in.
Yeah. I like what you said. There is a lot of emotion involved in it.
Oh, so much emotion. In real estate, you're part-time realtor, part-time counselor sometimes, I think, trying to work through things. And it also makes it very interesting too. I think, there's an art and science to real estate, and it's
True.
fun sometimes to work with these challenges. And when you get to a point where those challenges aren't fun anymore, it's probably time to think about doing something different, right?
Yeah. I'll never forget it. I had one couple I was helping, and I think they'd had some bad experiences with other real estate agents in the past, people who were just trying to sell them anything and everything to try to make a commission.
Yeah.
And I was showing them a bunch of houses, and they found one, and they were really, really on the fence about it. It was like a day or two, they were going back and forth. They were like, we need to make an offer. No, we don't. No. They just couldn't make up their mind. And I just stopped them and I said, hey, if you're this on the fence about it, it's probably not the right house.
Yeah.
And you can just see their eyes lit up, and they're like, oh my God, this guy's not just trying to sell us every house that we see. And then they've been just friends of mine ever since.
It's interesting. I do a new agent orientation, and I talk to new agents about the worst thing you can do is be a salesman.
Yeah.
In the traditional sense. I remember when I first got into real estate. I'd been in the Air Force for 26 years, and then I went in the corporate world. Never sold anything in my life, and I remember when I was talking to my new broker at the time, I said, I'm a little concerned that I've never sold anything, and I'm not the salesman type. He said, perfect, you're going to be great in real estate. I gave this example of one time I was walking through a car dealership with this broker guy. I never really valued vehicles that much, but I figured, hey, I'm getting into real estate, maybe I should get something nice. And we were walking through a dealership, and all of a sudden we got swarmed by salesmen, with their cute pitches and stuff like that. So when they come up to me and tell me how young and tall I look, I know I know right away. I'm getting I'm just getting a speech and things like that. So I think the best way to sell property, and your example is great. You show them that you're looking out for their interests.
Yeah. Right.
You're not looking out for your own, and that's your fiduciary responsibility anyway, right? Yeah. Ethically, that's what you're supposed to do. People don't expect that, I don't think.
They don't. I think there's a lot of people out there that think that we're just like used car salesmen.
Yeah.
So many. I get like strange attitudes from people who don't really know what's going on.
Yeah. Well, I'll be honest with you. And that's funny that you bring that up. I went from a profession, the military, when you looked at public ratings of organizations, and for a long time the military was right up in the top, and then lawyers were way down in the bottom, and realtors were kind of, somewhere in that same thing. But I remember thinking the same thing before I became a realtor. I didn't, I moved around every 2 years for 26 years, and I was abused by several realtors, that didn't have my best interests at heart until I met a couple that did. And then I realized what the difference was. But we have to manage our profession and make sure people understand. That's on us, right? How do we present ourselves? There's a lot of people out there from a lot of varying backgrounds that become realtors.
Yeah.
And
yeah, some of them have the wrong idea about how it's supposed to work.
Yeah.
I've always looked at it as, I'm not selling you a house, I'm helping you buy one.
That's a really good way to look at it. Yeah. Yeah, because as soon as you become that person, that, another thing I learned too is what I think doesn't really matter when I'm showing houses, right? So I've gone into a couple examples where I went into this house that was beautiful from the inside, and it met their requirements, but the outside, it had a highway streaming up and down it, and I was thinking, this house is never going to sell, right? And I did give them my opinion about the backyard, because again, as a realtor, I want them to know I'm on their side, and I don't want to sell them this house. But it was interesting. What I found out is like this couple had moved recently from New York City, and
they like the noise.
They like noise. I'm like, perfect. This is the perfect backyard. We're living in the suburbs right now, and I can't stand it. I can't. we have to listen to each other. So it was interesting.
I can hear the breathing. I hate it.
Yeah, so I learned that as well. But you have to find that balance between you obviously want to sell them the house, so you don't want to go in and go, oh, this is horrible, right? You want to listen to your client, hear what they have to say, but always err on the side of, I'm here for you, not for me. Because I think what a lot of realtors forget is that it's about real estate's about relationships. It's not about your next transaction.
100%.
And if I've earned business from people I've never sold anything to because I was honest with them.
I've had the conversation a couple times with people when you have the conversation about like how the commission structures work, and like, yes, technically most of the time, if the house is more expensive, the commission check's a little bit bigger. Well, then aren't you motivated to just up the price artificially, or collude with the seller's agent and try to rip me off? Well, not really.
No.
Because realistically, if you get some kind of scumbag agent who does that, you're never going to work with that person again.
No.
And tell all your friends never to work with that person again.
Right.
Like, okay, maybe they got a couple more bucks out of that transaction by being shady. But if you just do a good job for people, not only are they happy, they tell all their friends about you, now they're all interested in helping you or having you help them buy houses. So even if your whole goal is just money, it's still more beneficial to be a good agent and help people than to just be a scumbag.
Oh, absolutely. It really is. You have to be there for your client. You have to build trust, right? Yeah. And the worst way to build trust is to be unethical and But it's interesting. When the market was really strong, and my buyer client would ask, "Well, what should we offer?" And I'd say, "There's going to be multiple offers on this home.
Yeah.
We need to at least go in full asking price." And every once in a while, I'd get that question, like, "Who are you working for, me or them?" It's like, well, I'm working for you. Yeah. And I'm telling you, in this market right now, if we don't go, how bad do you want the house?
Yeah.
Right. My job is to get you that house too. And if this is what the market's saying, then we need to come in at full price. And quite frankly, let me do the math for you. If you want to come in $20,000 less, that's not really going to affect my commission.
Yeah.
Right. Very much.
Yeah.
3% of 20,000 or whatever you negotiated with your client, it's not going to be a lot of money.
Yeah, exactly.
So those are some interesting conversations that you got to have.
Yeah.
Sometimes you just got to, let them say, okay, we're going to submit an offer below and see how it pans out. And after the third time they've lost out, then they understand that
they understand you're not trying to rip them off. And it's actually, sometimes that, especially back when the market was crazy, someone wanted to list a house and they get 3 offers the first day.
Oh my gosh. It was a stressful
Can't lowball
time.
that time.
No, it's a very stressful time. And, and that's what I think the market's really stabilizing right now, right? And I think a lot of agents came in during that time when the market was great.
Yeah.
And now we have to look at strategies to what are you going to do in this market when it's changing. I was listening to some David Knox videos, and he's got a top producer on there. He's $1 billion producer, and he was talking about a changing market. He says, there's a lot of statistics out there. You can find them. He says, but you don't need those statistics to know that the market's changing. If what you did last year isn't working this year, the market's changing.
Yeah.
Right? So what are you going to do? What are you going to do differently? And, I've thought about that as well. I mean, I'm licensed in Texas as well.
You ever sell anything down there?
Oh, yeah. So, I was really surprised. I figured when I moved here that market would kind of close up for me. I'm not doing the volume I did before, but with a team of folks down there, I'm still.
I was wondering about that. Like, how do you go show houses?
Yeah. So I had a really, big, a couple of big clients, and I would actually fly down there. My girls live down there too, so I can write it off as a business expense.
Nice.
Kind of go down there and see my daughters and my granddaughter, and show some houses or get a house listed. But a lot of them, they just want me to do the analysis and do the things that I did for them before. And I have agents that can, especially newer agents there that want to make some extra money, and I pay them well to help me out with that. But I really think in this changing market, people are going to have to get back to basics. There's a lot of different ways to generate leads. We get social media. We get all these things work great, but I really think for me is going to be getting back to basics and really working your SOI. I think that's one of the best things you can do in a changing market, and have some realistic goals too. Like, maybe call 3 people each day. Don't try to call 100 people, and have impactful conversations with them. And have, impactful conversations and I teach new agents this during new agent orientation. I had my mentor, I think he's, in his late 70s, maybe early 80s, he doesn't tell me, but he's pretty much retired from real estate, but he likes to help people. And he's told me this numerous times. You'd say, Todd, if you can't add benefit and value, don't say anything. So if you're going to call a client and trying to build up your SOI, and you just call and say, hi, I'm Todd, you want to buy a house? That's not really adding any value to them. What can you do for them?
Yeah.
Why are you calling them? First of all, maybe you're going to thank them for prior transactions and let them know how much that's helped their business. Or maybe you're going, it's tax season and they want to dispute their taxes, and you can offer to do a comparative market analysis for them at the lower end of that range. Of course, you got to be ethical, but at the same time, you can help your clients that way. So I think that's what I'm going to be doing, and that's what I'm encouraging a lot of our other agents to do, to actually have conversations.
Yeah.
It can be awkward. It doesn't have to be a conversation in person, although I highly recommend that. Social media influencers that are talking to their clients very well on social media. Their clients are getting to know them through social media. For me, that doesn't work for me. It's older school, older guy. I don't think that works well for me, but I like to what's called belly to belly, and that means talking face to face, or inviting somebody out for coffee, inviting somebody out for lunch.
Makes sense. That face-to-face interaction means a lot.
I think so. That's where I feel most confident. I'm not a cold caller. I was never excited about that. And I know a lot of people that do it. I'm not saying you shouldn't. I was never a door knocker. I didn't feel comfortable with that because I was always irritated if somebody knocked on my door.
Yeah.
Right.
Unless you have an Amazon package for me, go away.
Exactly. Well, hey, that's a good tactic, right? Just show up with the package.
Oh, that's brilliant.
Yeah, it gets back to ethics, so don't want to do that. But I love door knocking when I go and I can add benefit and value. So if I'm doing an open house, I have an excuse to go talk to the neighbors. It might be as simple as, hi, I'm Todd, I'm doing an open house over here. If anybody's blocking your driveway or something, here's my business card. Give me a call. Hey, come over and see the house. Those types of things. I feel confident doing that because I have a reason to be there, right? Yeah. So
I have done that before. I need to do that more when I do open houses. I haven't done them in a minute, but that is definitely a good tactic.
It really is, and this is a lesson I learned about. And it's funny, it's a lesson I learned even though I knew the lesson, which it makes it even worse. But probably about 5 or 6 years ago, had a listing in a neighborhood in Texas, and my neighbor, my client even told me, said, hey, the guy next door is thinking about selling his house. You might want to go talk to him, right? I mean, it was like, wow, what a great, I was doing open houses there, and I didn't do what I was teaching people to do, and I just didn't do it for whatever reason. But a week later, he called me and said, hey, my neighbor's got a for sale sign in the yard. It's through your brokerage, but your name's not underneath it. And that was a big lesson. Somebody in my brokerage got that listing because they followed up. They did an open house for me, and then they went over and talked to the neighbors. Brilliant. That's what they should have done, right? That's what I should have done. I was just glad that somebody in my brokerage got the listing. If it had been, another brokerage, I really would have been upset about it. But at least somebody in the brokerage I was working for at the time, got that listing.
I remember I used to work with a lady, one of the most charismatic people I've ever met in my life. And she pairs that also with being one of the luckiest people I've ever met in my life. And she's just performing phenomenally. She was telling me about a time she was doing an open house. And part of the reason this happened was because she's so charismatic. She was talking to the person who was selling the house in the driveway. Mm-hmm. And one of the neighbors saw him and came over and said, hey, do you want to list my house too?
That's funny. That is crazy. In not to that extent, but remember I told you before that I learn something about real estate every day, and I even learn from new agents some of the things that they employ. So I remember a few years back, I trained and mentored this young agent and how to do open houses, and I talked to her about how to procure buyers during an open house. And so I went over there. I knew she was doing the open house. I just wanted to see how she was doing. And in came a neighbor, and she secured a listing because she asked the right questions. And I said, wow, I never thought of that. I said, I did open houses just trying to get buyers. I wasn't thinking about, do you have a house to sell at the same time? But she extrapolated that and did something well. But yeah.
That's smart.
Yeah, it really is. But yeah, you talk about luck, and there is some luck, involved. I had my wife and I were in an ROTC program together at the University of Maine, and we had our professor of aerospace studies. He said, 90% of my success in life has to do with luck. He says, but I made my own luck.
Yeah.
Right? So it just doesn't happen. You have to do the work to make your own luck. So, yeah, it's interesting.
There's a good saying. I'm trying to remember what it was. It's something like preparation or success is where preparation and hard work meets luck or opportunity.
Yeah, I know what you're
So, I
talking
mean, if you're
about.
not prepared, I'm sure that's not the exact quote, but
Yeah.
it's something like if you're not prepared for that opportunity when it's there,
Exactly.
then it's almost like it wasn't even there to begin with.
Absolutely. So, like if you're at an open house and you don't know the right things to say,
Yeah.
you had an opportunity. Somebody came in and wanted to buy a house, but you didn't know how to speak to that individual
Yeah.
or what you need to know before you got there. Yeah, where luck meets opportunity, and you have to have a plan. You have to know what you're doing in order for luck to work.
Yeah.
Right. You have to be prepared for luck, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So yeah, absolutely.
For sure. Do you have a favorite training program?
No, I don't think so. For me, I enjoy the hands-on stuff the most because I think that's where I'm most effective teaching.
So was it 3 or 4 of those? We had the open house one, the listing.
We had the open house one. We had the listing appointment one. We had the construction
And the home inspection.
and the home inspection
Yeah.
one. So yeah, we have 4 of those, and I really enjoy those the most. Some of the classes I teach, like the purchase contract class, it's a very important class, but I mean, I'm teaching it and I'm bored, so kind of falling
Yeah.
asleep. I know everybody else is too. It's kind of hard to keep that one exciting, So it's 3 hours of going, paragraph by paragraph, line by line. But
Yeah. That's essential.
You'd be shocked how many realtors out there don't know how to read a contract.
Oh, yeah.
And if you can't turn that contract around and read it upside down to your client, then you've kind of missed the
Yeah.
point. There's too many people out there just checking off blocks. And,
100%.
yeah, you have to know what the contract's about. And every time I teach that class, I learn something new about the contract. Like, wow, I need to read that a little closer. I didn't realize that's exactly what they're saying. So, yeah.
Every once in a while, something will sneak up in there.
Oh yeah, for sure.
And there's little boxes in there that people don't really think about. Like at my old brokerage, one of the managers, there's a specific box when it comes to the defect notice part where you can write something in.
Right.
And she always had me write in there anything unacceptable to buyer. We just meant if anything's wrong, we don't have to
pretty
submit a
open.
defect notice. We can just leave. I had a few people accept contracts with that in it.
Wow.
And then I had one person. It was just the worst flip you've ever seen in your life. We had 2 different roofers out there to say the whole roof needs to be replaced because it was such a bad job. Like windows were wrong, a bunch of other things. Some of the piping needs to be fixed. It wasn't anything like, I don't think the house was going to burn down or anything, but it was just
Right.
expensive stuff that this guy really cut corners on.
Yeah.
And we didn't want to put ourselves in a situation where to give this guy the opportunity to fix the stuff because he's just going to go back to the people who didn't do a good job in the first place and then say, yep, it's fixed now. You have to buy it. So we're just like, well, hey, we're going to use that part and we're just going to leave because you signed it. We can do that.
It's interesting. There's some personalities out there, and what I find it's very rare. But there's a couple of times where I've interviewed with clients, and I decided it was in the life's too short category,
Yeah.
and don't want to work that. I mean, and of course you're probably able to do that more as you get more involved in the business and it's tough when you have a client and then you decide that you just can't work with them anymore. I would say for me that's only happened once, and it happened recently where I decided I couldn't work with this client anymore. So it's very rare that happens, but it's going to happen sometimes in this business.
Sometimes people are just unreasonable, and sometimes just a personality difference.
Yeah, it could be a personality difference, and my response to them would be, hey, maybe I can find somebody else in the brokerage that might be a better fit for you, in terms of what you're looking for, right? So you're never rude, never mean.
Yeah.
It's just something you have to do. You have to make sure your time is filled appropriately, and you got to find a good balance there.
Are you working on developing any new trainings right now?
So I'm always thinking about different training opportunities that are out there. I'm looking to develop more courses for our aspiring agents, our agents that are, doing well production-wise, but they just want to be better realtors. So I'm looking at, developing more of those types of classes. Other than that, I'm always looking for suggestions from agents on what we can do to help their business. I've concentrated a lot on listings. I'm thinking about, hey, what about more classes for the buyer side? I know that I'm teaching a purchase contract class, but I'm not teaching a class on how to do the listing paperwork, those types of things. So I probably need to start looking at adding some other classes that'll put people to sleep as well, but are just as important as understanding that. So,
The listing appointments are interesting because they not only have to understand like the listing paperwork, but they have to understand what kind of contracts they're going to be seeing and what's in them.
Absolutely.
So it's almost a buyer's and a seller's.
You got to know both sides of it for sure. Yeah. We always start with the purchase contract. I think that's the most important one to learn. Because especially for new agents, they're probably not going to have listings right away. Yeah, so I'm always trying to spice things up because, like these hands-on classes, starting to see a slight decline in attendance because a lot of people have been to them already. And so as new agents come on, then the classes start filling up more. So again, what can I do to provide interesting classes for people that have been here for a long time and keep it? I think that historical class that we had the other day, a lot of agents really liked that. That was Rhonda's idea, right?
Good idea.
This is something she wanted to do. It was a great idea, right? So there's several more classes that she teaches, and I'm going to look into some of those because people are really, we're going to actually do, I'm not sure if we mentioned this yet, but we're probably, when the weather gets better, we're going to do a walking tour of some of these things. So just keep expanding on the stuff that works.
Do you have any classes for either investing in real estate yourself or helping an investor, like how to underwrite a property or anything?
I don't. That's interesting, though. As a matter of fact, I was talking to Brett a little bit this morning about that. And I know we have a lot of agents here in this brokerage that work with investors, and that might be, me personally, I only work successfully with one investor. I found investors can be really difficult to work with. Not that they're bad people, but they're there for the bottom line, and they're there to make money. And sometimes that can be, obviously we all are, but sometimes it's hard to. I have found personally difficult to work with investors, and I worked successfully with an investor once, but I know there's people in this brokerage that work with investors a lot successfully, and that's a really good point. I should probably reach out to them, find out what they're doing, because I know there's other people here that would probably like to learn more about that, and that would be an advanced class. It's a really good idea. So thanks for bringing that in. See, I learn something new every day. That's a good one. I'm going to write that one down for sure.
Yeah, I just made a little video about how to underwrite a property I'm planning on putting up, because I'm trying to put out one podcast a week.
Yeah.
But every once in a while, especially when like the weather was terrible, I couldn't get in here, or I just couldn't find anybody to come in. I just had like a week where I didn't have one.
Right.
So I think I'm just going to put out some sort of little like kind of educational video out there for those weeks.
Oh yeah, that's a good idea for sure. Keep that content rolling, right?
Yeah. I try to make them like as small as possible because I notice when I'm going to try to find something and I see some video that's like 20 minutes and I see another one that's like 3, like I'm clicking that 3-minute
Clicking
video.
the 3-minute one.
Like just give me the information because I know like 50% of that long video is going to be just junk.
Right.
An investor class would be really cool. Not just working with investors, but just how to invest in your own properties as well.
Yeah.
Do you have any investment properties?
I have one in Texas. It's actually a home that I used to live in, and
Nice.
so I consider that an investment property now.
You ever rent it out?
I've got it rented out, and even though I could manage the property myself, I decided I'm not going to do that.
Yeah, especially if it's in Texas.
Yeah, actually, the property manager I'm using is somebody that worked in my brokerage
Nice.
Before, and I was like, yeah, you got it. You just let me know when something goes wrong. And I've had a lot of friends when I was in the military that every time they move somewhere, they'd buy a house and they'd rent it out or do something with it. And
It's a good strategy.
I wish I had the foresight then to actually do that myself, but I didn't. So it's always one of those things you look back on. So,
Yeah. But you got the one. You see how many benefits there are to
oh
it.
my gosh,
Yeah.
it really is. It's tax benefits is,
Tax benefits, the appreciation. You
Yeah.
basically you have to sit back and collect the rent checks unless something breaks.
yeah, absolutely. Yeah, so I'm looking forward to keeping that property for quite a while and let somebody else pay the mortgage and me build equity because I bought the house when the interest rates were like under 3%. So
Nice.
I think I'd be foolish to pay it off. Just let somebody keep paying the mortgage on it, and and getting more each month to help cover expenses. So what I'm getting in rent is more than what I'm paying in mortgage. So
For sure.
really all it pays for itself,
Yeah.
for sure.
How long ago did you buy it?
2016.
Okay.
Yeah.
So a little while.
Yeah. I mean, it was a brand new house when I bought it. So I don't have to change the roof yet.
Yeah. Yeah. That'd be a fun class. I'd go to that one.
Yeah. Well, I'm going to look into that. I'm going to actually, I think that's a really good idea. It'd be kind of an upper level class for people who are looking to do something a little bit different.
That'd be good for everybody, really.
Yeah.
Even the people who are just getting into it, because like it's a whole thing to know about, especially if you work in this field and you're familiar with all the houses. That could be a really good long-term strategy for your career.
Absolutely. I'm always hesitant when new agents want to work with investors right away. I think you probably have
really
to
got to
learn.
know your stuff. Yeah.
You really have to understand real estate, I think, first before you do that. But we actually have a few new agents that they got into real estate because of it.
Same. Yeah, that's what I did.
All right, okay. And so some of these folks, new investors, like I think we have a new agent whose dad invests in homes. So that's a great deal right there. He's working with somebody he can trust. So you're right. There's probably some new agents that would want to participate as well. But I'm always a little bit cautious because I think you have to really know the basics of real estate before you start getting into those types of things. It's like getting into commercial or in Texas, farm and ranch is really big. It's like, hey, let's understand residential first.
Yeah.
I think that's my opinion. Some people might disagree with that, but that's why I always try and impart on new agents. Yeah.
Especially if they don't have a whole lot of family members or personal experience with the investing.
Exactly. Yeah. A lot of people, and it's funny, and it's a good and bad thing about real estate is everybody thinks they know about real estate, right?
Everybody.
Which is great because you can
And
strike
everybody
up
has an
conversation.
uncle or a cousin who knows a lot about real estate.
So you get that. We were talking about our new agent orientation. You just put a sticker on your back of your laptop and go to Starbucks and say, I'm a realtor, ask me questions. And people want to talk to you about real estate. So they think they know about it. And some people do and some people really don't. But I think one of the things we see sometimes with a lot of new agents is, they watch, HGTV and flip this house and think that, hey, this is the formula right here. It's going to be really easy. Everything's going to fall into place. And it really doesn't, I don't think.
Yeah. I don't know how many people who are approved for an FHA loan have come to me and said, what do you think about foreclosures? I think you can't get one.
Right, exactly. Exactly. I know we have agents here at Irongate that could probably teach a whole series of classes on that. So,
yeah, I've never successfully gotten a different investor to work with. I mean, I bought my own investment property back in June for the first time. That was awesome. But yeah, like you said, a lot of investors are worried about that bottom line. So if they can figure out a way to cut you out of the equation, they will.
Yeah, I found that, and I'm not saying investors are bad people. I mean, they got a pretty tight margin,
Yeah, for
to
sure.
make on their homes, so they're looking to cut costs anywhere they can, and sometimes when they're looking at overhead, you might be the overhead. So you spend a lot of time and effort, and then all of a sudden you're not part of the deal anymore. So you have to be a little concerned about that. That's where the buyer's agency agreement really comes.
Yeah, for real. And I remember I went to one of the local investment groups. Not going to give their name away, but they were. As soon as I said I was a real estate agent, everybody was just kind of like, "Oh," and you could tell there was just a lot of animosity, and they didn't want me there, and I couldn't figure out why. Because I'm like, it makes sense to me if you've done this 30 times. You probably know what you're doing. You may or may not need an agent, but if they're brand new, it'd be really beneficial to have somebody who can sit there, help you crunch the numbers, make sure you're not going to get screwed over in the contract, make sure all the inspections go the way you want.
Yeah.
It'd be really beneficial. And this is an investor group where there's a whole bunch of new people.
Right.
And then I was sitting there, I was trying to talk to some of the newer people that were sitting next to me. And I had this guy who'd been doing it for years, sit down, one of the gurus. He said this to these brand new people who didn't know any better. He was like, "Oh, I just go out there and check to see if the door is unlocked. And if it is, I just go inside and take a look." I'm like, awesome, that's a felony. That's cool. You're telling these brand new people to go commit. I see why you don't want me here.
Right. Yeah, that's bold. But I see a lot of investors do that. They actually call the listing agents to gain access. They think if they work directly with the seller that they can cut commissions and cut overall costs and things like that. So. Yeah, I get that for sure. But yeah, that's really bad advice.
Yeah. Right there. And of course, he's telling this to these brand new people.
Yeah. So well, it's interesting. And again, it's our job as realtors to educate the public on where we do add benefit and value. It's funny. I have new agents, and even some more experienced agents that didn't realize that, or even clients. Buyers that didn't know there would be any reason to use a realtor for new construction, right? That their conventional wisdom was, I can go there and do this myself, and they don't have to pay a realtor 3%. So therefore, that's going to translate to savings for me. Well, it's not.
No,
it's not, because they have especially for big builders, they have a production budget and they have a marketing budget. The two don't really talk to each other. But a good agent can save a buyer money in a new construction site, because an agent's going to know what incentives to ask for. They're going to know what inspections or when they should do the inspections to save them a lot of butt pain in the future. Those types of things. So
100%.
It's really you really have to explain to your clients where you add that benefit.
Yeah. Yeah. I helped a client buy a house closer to Cincinnati. I think it was over in Mainsville through John Henry Homes. They actually did a really good job.
Nice.
But a couple things I did to help them out was pretty much nobody knows that you can do inspections during a new construction build. Mm-hmm. And they don't know that you're supposed to do it at different times either.
Right.
So I got somebody out there to do an inspection before they put up the drywall and everything, so we could see how the plumbing was laid out, how the wires were laid out, all that. And then once everything was actually put together, to make sure everything was good that way. And then another thing I did was every 2 weeks or so, I'd go out there and take pictures of the updates and exactly what they're doing. Mm-hmm. And one time that really did come up to be beneficial, because they had put down the carpet, but for whatever reason they had put the wrong color carpet in one of the bedrooms. It just went from a white to a gray.
Wow.
It was just a harsh transition, made no sense.
Yeah.
And it was just somebody read something wrong in the paperwork.
But
I was there and I took pictures of it. We talked to them and they fixed it immediately. They were awesome about it. But if other builders might not have done that.
That for sure. In clients' understanding, to me, the most important inspection on a new build is the pre-drywall inspection, because that's where you're going to find out whether those pipes are loose over the kitchen, they're going to explode, whatever. A couple months later, and and here's something interesting. I won't name the particular builder, but I went under contract a couple months ago here locally with a builder, and they will only allow one third-party inspection. So they said, pick one.
That's not a red flag at all.
Well, I think a lot of times, builders, and here's the thing too, not all third-party inspectors are created equally, right? I mean, I've seen third-party inspectors go in there and write a 90-page report, and some of it's just wrong. I mean, they're, when third-party inspectors, they're supposed to know how to look at things and determine what could be wrong, but they're not necessarily experts in plumbing and electrical and different things like that. So I think a lot of times builders are apprehensive to having third parties come in there and give buyers a list of things that aren't necessarily wrong, and then they have to deal with that, right? So I get that. But for me, I insist on third-party inspections for my clients and new builds if that's what my clients want. I'm not going to force it on them. It's going to cost them some money. But I think the pre-drywall inspection is the most important one. So in this case, my client has opted to do the pre-drywall inspection.
Yeah.
And then I told them if they won't allow a post-drywall inspection, then you have a 1-year warranty on your home anyway. Let the house sit for 9-10 months, maybe close to a year. Have you own the house now, do another third-party inspection. So when you can just hand that report over the builder and say, okay, I want all these things fixed.
Yeah.
So, but actually, though, this builder is a very reputable builder that's only allowing one inspection. I was kind of surprised. I understand why, why they do it, but yeah.
How did the house turn out?
It's being built now.
Oh, okay. Gotcha.
So
when's it finished?
It'll be finished probably in May.
Nice.
Yeah. So we'll schedule some pre-drywall inspections when it's time to do that, and so
I appreciate you coming out.
Yeah.
If people want to reach out to you, how do they find you?
they can look on my website. They can call me. They can, show up here at Beaver Creek, whatever they need to do for sure.
What's your website?
Well, I've got my Delta website. It's it's our typical Irongate with my name on it. So,
gotcha.
Yeah. Yeah.
Very cool. I appreciate it.
All right. Thank you very much.